Marcus walked slowly through the shimmering market of Arian 5, a planet unlike any he had visited before. The air buzzed with strange melodies from unfamiliar instruments, and the stalls were vibrant with glowing fruits, shape-shifting fabrics, and curious contraptions that clicked and whirred in the sunlight. Despite the magic of the place, his stomach reminded him he hadn't eaten properly in days. His last possession of comfort lay hidden in his pocket, a small piece of chocolate wrapped in thin, crinkled foil. He had carried it from Earth, saving it for a moment of desperation. But what defined desperation? As he passed by a quiet corner near a fruit vendor, he saw her. A young girl, small and still, sat alone. Her skin shimmered like deep lake water, a soft blue hue that sparkled when light touched it. Her eyes were too large for her face, filled with a gentle glow that seemed to flicker between hope and exhaustion. Her hands clutched her stomach, not in pain, but in patience. He slowed, something in his chest pulling him toward her. The crowd ebbed and flowed around her, but no one noticed. Or maybe they had and chose not to act. He knelt beside her, offering a smile that she didn't return, yet. "Hi," he said gently, his voice nearly swallowed by the hum of the market. "You look like you could use this." He reached into his coat and held out the chocolate. Her eyes widened, glowing a little more. She reached for it slowly, as if unsure if it were real. Then her small fingers closed around it, careful and reverent. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was soft, foreign but tender. Marcus sat beside her, watching her unwrap the foil with care. She broke off the tiniest piece, placing it on her tongue. Her expression lit up with wonder. She looked at him again, and this time, she smiled. Others noticed. A pale green boy approached, then another child with violet freckles. Soon, a small group formed around them. All quiet. All watching. Marcus looked at them, then back at the girl. "I don't have more," he admitted. She nodded, breaking the chocolate again, offering fragments to the others. The treat vanished quickly, but the act remained. Around them, the market paused. Something unspoken passed between species and strangers. The silence wasn't empty, it was full. An older alien woman with flowing silver robes and curious eyes approached. She watched the children, then looked at Marcus. "You are kind," she said simply. Marcus nodded. He didn't know what came next. But he had offered all he had, and in doing so, he felt he had gained something he hadn't even known he was missing. As the twin suns dipped lower in the sky, Marcus remained seated on the warm ground, surrounded by children he couldn't speak to, but who seemed to understand him anyway. He smiled. Kindness, he realized, needed no translator. As the trio walked toward the Zalari settlement, the market sound slowly faded behind them. Vela led Marcus and Lyra through fields dusted in soft blue light from the planet's twin suns. Strange flowers glowed with gentle luminescence, and tall, spiral-shaped trees lined the path. Birds with crystal-colored wings soared overhead, their calls like wind chimes. Marcus had traveled far across the galaxy, but this place felt different. It wasn't just the alien landscape, it was the way Vela moved with calm purpose, and the quiet trust in Lyra's small hand as she gripped his sleeve. Here, on this strange world, he didn't feel like an outsider. Not entirely. "Your people live here permanently?" Marcus asked. "We do," Vela replied, glancing back at him with her large, pale green eyes. "Since our home world was lost, this place has sheltered us. It is not perfect, but it is alive. And we have made it ours." The path widened to reveal a cluster of low, dome-like buildings with surfaces that shimmered faintly, built from what looked like polished stone and interwoven organic materials. Woven flags hung between buildings, fluttering in a breeze that smelled like citrus and rain. Gardens ringed each dwelling, blooming with alien fruits and vegetables that pulsed with subtle light. Marcus stepped into the village and paused. Laughter echoed softly from children playing near a fountain that shot spirals of water into the air. Elders with long robes sat beneath large frond trees, playing melodic instruments shaped like seashells. "It's beautiful," Marcus said. Vela smiled. "We try to make it so," she gestured to a large structure in the center. "That is our hearth hall. It is where we gather, share stories, eat meals, and make decisions. Elra will want to speak with you." Elra? The mother of Lyra. And a council leader. Marcus felt a slight tension in his chest. He wasn't sure if Elra would be angry, or suspicious. Inside the hearth hall, the scent of warm spices filled the air. Glowing orbs floated near the ceiling, casting soft light. Long tables circled a central fire pit where a slow-burning flame cast dancing shadows. People looked up as they entered, their expressions curious but not unkind. Elra stood near the far wall. She was tall, even among the Zalari, with smooth silver skin that shimmered like moonlight. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed down her back like strands of quicksilver. Her eyes were violet, deep and ancient. She turned as Lyra ran toward her. The child leapt into her arms. "Mother." Elra's composure softened instantly. She knelt and embraced Lyra, then looked at Marcus. "You are the human who gave my daughter food." "I am," Marcus said, meeting her gaze. "It was all I had left. But she needed it more." Elra studied him for a moment longer, then gave a small nod. "Thank you." It was just 2 words, but they held more weight than any speech. "Come," she said. "You are our guest now. And you will eat more than chocolate tonight." Marcus followed her to a long table where a meal was already being prepared. Plates of fruits, roots, and delicate breads were arranged with care. Pitchers of glowing drink were passed around. As Marcus sat down, he found himself surrounded by faces of all ages. Children leaned close to inspect his hands. Elders asked about his journey. Lyra sat proudly by his side. "Your planet," an older Zalari with dusky blue skin asked, "is it as green as they say?" "In places, yes," Marcus said. "We have vast oceans, tall mountains, and forests older than our civilizations." "And what do you grow?" "Corn. Wheat. Rice. And fruits, like bananas, and apples, and berries." Lyra's eyes widened. "What are berries?" Marcus smiled. "Tiny, juicy fruits. Sweet and tart. You'd love them." Stories flowed back and forth. Elra shared tales of the Zalari's exodus from their original world. She told of the great floods that had swallowed their cities, and the long flight through space to find a new home. "We were not always welcome," she said, her voice soft. "Some planets turned us away. Others wanted to use us. But here, Arian 5 gave us a place to survive. And thrive," Marcus said, looking around at the joy and unity. "With difficulty," Vela added. "The planet is harsh. Storms, soil that resists planting. But we persist." Marcus felt something stirring in his chest. Back on Earth, we forget how easy we have it sometimes. As the meal ended, a quiet music began. Instruments of shell, reed, and crystal began to play. The room shifted into warmth and rhythm. Some began to dance. Children giggled. The fire in the hearth crackled like laughter. Elra sat beside Marcus. "You are unlike other humans we have known." "I'm not special," he said. "I was just trying to do the right thing." "That," she said gently, "is special." Lyra rested her head against Marcus's arm. Her eyes closed with a smile. "You made my stomach happy." Marcus laughed. "I'm glad." Outside, the twin suns had set, and stars filled the sky. The villagers guided Marcus to a small guest shelter made of white stone and woven cloth. "Rest," Elra said. "Tomorrow, you will see more." "Thank you," Marcus whispered. Inside the shelter, he lay on a soft bed of moss and silk. He stared at the unfamiliar constellations above through a skylight. His heart was full. He had shared one piece of chocolate. And now he was wrapped in a new world, a new life, and something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Morning came with the soft golden shimmer of the twin suns rising over Arian 5. Marcus stepped outside his guest shelter and drew in a deep breath. The air carried a hint of citrus and earth, fresh from the nearby glowing gardens. The village stirred slowly around him. Figures moved gracefully between the garden beds and the dome-shaped houses. Laughter of children echoed faintly from beyond the trees. He found Elra already awake, standing near the edge of the settlement with her face tilted toward the horizon. The breeze carried strands of her quicksilver hair behind her like a comet's tail. She turned slightly at the sound of Marcus's steps. "Good morning," Marcus said. Elra gave a faint smile. "It is peaceful today." "Yes," Marcus said, gazing out over the vast plains and low hills. "More peaceful than most places I've seen. Perhaps too peaceful." He raised a brow. "What do you mean?" "Our elders have seen signs," Elra replied, her voice quieter now. "The winds are changing. The sky shifts more quickly than it should. We believe a storm is coming." Marcus's eyes followed her gaze. The sky was cloudless for now, but there was a strange pressure in the air. He knew that feeling. He had felt it back on Earth before the hurricanes. How bad? Unlike anything we've seen in years. The last great storm nearly destroyed our western farms. Marcus nodded grimly. "Then we should get ready." He spent the rest of the morning with Elra and Vela, discussing the layout of the village and the shelters. Their homes were strong, designed to withstand rough weather, but the gardens and outer structures were more vulnerable. "We can reinforce the eastern wall," Marcus said, studying the layout sketched in glowing lines on a glass sheet. "And the food stores need to be moved underground if possible." Vela agreed. "We've done it before. But not with your help." By midday, the village was in motion. News of the approaching storm spread swiftly. Elders barked orders. Children were called inside. The peaceful atmosphere of the previous evening turned into a hum of purpose. Marcus worked side by side with Solari laborers, lifting beams, tying down protective fabrics, and teaching methods from Earth to channel runoff water. He showed them how to weave temporary sandbags from the fibrous stalks that grew near the river. "Your world has many storms," one of the young workers asked him as they built a windbreak wall together. "Some regions, yes," Marcus replied. "But the people come together for safety. Like here." Lyra ran up to him in the afternoon, holding a tool twice her size. "I can help too." He laughed, taking the tool and ruffling her hair. "You already are." Elra watched from the top of the meeting hall as her people moved like a single organism, fearless, focused, united. She joined Marcus as the clouds finally began to roll in by late evening. "You've given them hope," she said. "I only gave one child a piece of chocolate," Marcus replied. "And that small act has rippled far beyond what you could see." Lightning forked on the far horizon. The wind picked up. A low, groaning sound echoed over the hills. That night, the Zalari huddled inside the main hall and other shelters. Children sat close to their families, while the fire in the hearth flickered wildly. Marcus sat near Lyra and her mother, his back pressed to the curved stone wall. "How long will it last?" he asked. "We don't know," Elra said. "But we will endure it." As the storm howled outside, the Zalari sang. Their songs were slow and filled with layered harmonies, ancient tones passed through generations. Marcus listened, letting the music carry him away from the fear clawing in his gut. He remembered nights on Earth where he had waited out storms alone. He was not alone this time. Hours passed. The wind screamed. Rain pounded the dome. Once, a violent thud shook the wall. "That was the garden barrier," someone whispered. Marcus stood and offered to check it. Elra stopped him. Not yet. Wait for the wind to calm. Eventually, after what felt like a lifetime, the storm began to weaken. The wind slowed. The rain softened. Dawn glimmered on the horizon. It was over. Marcus and Elra stepped out cautiously. The village had suffered, but not fallen. One shelter had partially collapsed, and many of the outer gardens were flooded. But the people had survived. Cheers rose as more villagers stepped into the light. Families embraced. Lyra ran into the soaked fields, laughing as the fresh sun bathed the settlement. Marcus smiled. Despite everything, hope bloomed. Repairs began immediately. The Zalari worked with renewed vigor, grateful for what had been saved. Marcus led efforts to create raised beds in the gardens to protect against future flooding. He helped teach young builders how to anchor roofs more securely. That evening, they lit a fire in the central hall. Elra stood and spoke. We have survived many things. But what we gain in survival is only half the truth. What matters is how we grow from it. This storm showed us something important: new friends can become family. She turned to Marcus. And we thank you, not just for your hands, but for your heart. Marcus stood slowly, his cheeks flushed. I've traveled many places. But here, I found something worth staying for. Elra nodded. Then stay. Not as a guest. But as one of us. The hall filled with gentle applause, and Lyra ran up to hug Marcus tightly. He knelt to embrace her, smiling through misty eyes. That night, beneath a sky freckled with stars, Marcus sat with Elra by a gently crackling fire. It was never just a storm, he said quietly. No, she agreed. It was a beginning. In the days following the storm, the Zalari settlement pulsed with renewed energy. It wasn't just the repairs that filled the air with purpose, it was something deeper, something more hopeful. The storm had not broken them, it had bound them. And now, they moved not as survivors, but as a people shaping their future. Marcus awoke each morning to the soft chirps of crystal-winged birds and the scent of dew on glowing leaves. He no longer felt like an outsider. Wherever he walked, children greeted him, elders nodded in respect, and friends waved him over to join their work. One day, Elra approached him carrying a woven basket filled with seeds. Today, she said, you learn the garden's rhythm. He followed her into the largest of their agricultural rings, where strange vines curled around trellises that pulsed faintly with light. The plants were unlike anything from Earth, some grew fruit that shimmered like pearls, while others released a soft mist when touched. We do not force the plants, Elra explained as she knelt. We listen. We adapt. Marcus mirrored her movements, carefully pressing seeds into the warm soil. On Earth, some forget that part. We try to control everything. She looked at him. Perhaps this is what we can teach one another. As the days passed, that philosophy spread beyond gardening. The Zalari and Marcus began to exchange knowledge in earnest. He showed them ways to purify water more efficiently, simple mechanical tools, and ways to store energy using techniques he had learned from human engineers. In return, they taught him their language, their songs, their rituals, and their ways of reading the sky. It was Lyra who insisted on teaching him how to dance the Circle of Light, a traditional ceremony held during each twin moon rise. You're too stiff, she giggled as Marcus fumbled the footwork. I'm trying, he protested, laughing. Your feet move faster than mine. Watch, she said, spinning gracefully. Feel the rhythm. Not with your feet. With your heart. When the night of the circle came, Marcus stood beside Lyra and dozens of Zalari beneath the glowing moons. Rings of floating lights drifted above them, casting slow waves of color across the field. A chorus began, low and harmonic, as dancers moved in spirals. Marcus took Lyra's hand, and together they joined the dance. Nearby, Elra and Vela watched quietly. He belongs now, Vela said. Yes, Elra whispered. He is one of us. Later that night, as the last embers of the fire faded, Elra invited Marcus to her home for tea brewed from petals that changed flavor as they steeped. They sat together near the window. You've become more than just a friend to us, Elra said softly. You've become a bridge. Marcus set his cup down, the steam curling in the starlight. I never meant to be anything more than a traveler. But now, it feels like I've stopped running. Elra studied him for a moment. And what will you do, now that you've stopped? Build something, Marcus said. With all of you. Not just for safety, but for connection. Elra nodded. Then you must see what lies beyond the hills. That suggestion led to the next day's journey. Elra, Marcus, Lyra, and a small team trekked beyond the boundary of the known settlement. They climbed low hills where grasses glowed underfoot and passed stone monoliths carved with ancient Zalari markings. We once lived in harmony with many other tribes, Elra said. But after the disaster, we became scattered. Some may still be out there. They reached an overlook just as dusk fell. Below, a vast valley opened before them, dotted with ruins and glints of reflected light, perhaps from old structures or even other settlements. We want to reach out, Elra said. But we need trust. Marcus's gaze swept the valley. Maybe the storm brought more than rain. Maybe it brought the reason to reconnect. As they camped under the stars, Lyra curled beside her mother, and Marcus stared into the fire. He saw not just flames, but possibilities, festivals between tribes, markets full of shared culture, and friendships stretching beyond their small village. When they returned, he and Elra began planning. They created sketches for meeting halls, story circles, and places of learning where knowledge could be passed freely between human and Zalari children. A week later, a ship passed high overhead. Not a warship. Not a freighter. But a diplomatic vessel from a neighboring planet. It was the first outside contact the Zalari had received in months. And this time, they were ready. Elra invited the envoys to join the next circle of light. Marcus stood beside her, his hand in Lyra's, as they welcomed visitors who looked both alien and familiar. And when the music began, the new voices joined the old in a single song. You see, Elra whispered. This is how we weave our worlds. Marcus smiled. With kindness, and rhythm. Seasons shifted gently on Arian 5. Where once the soil resisted, now it blossomed under careful hands and exchanged wisdom. The twin suns warmed the fields and domes of the Zalari settlement, where humans and Zalari now worked, lived, and dreamed side by side. Marcus rose early each morning, often beating the sun itself, walking the edge of the gardens while soft mist curled around his boots. Every morning began with music. It was Lyra's habit to rise just before him and sing to the plants, a tradition among the Zalari to encourage growth. Marcus had grown to love those melodies, light, untranslatable tunes that somehow stirred joy from the air itself. As the village expanded, so did its reach. Marcus and Elra established the Star Council, a gathering held beneath the twin moons once every cycle, inviting emissaries from other tribes, scattered colonies, and now visiting humans who had come in response to the call of peace. It began with small arrivals. A trader ship from Borealis Prime, bringing tools crafted from living crystal. A delegation from the verdant clan of Kalar, who had preserved old Zalari songs thought lost. And then, more cautiously, an exploratory crew from Earth. Marcus watched their vessel land with mixed feelings. It was sleek, clinical, and cold, full of purpose, but lacking the warmth that had reshaped his life. The crew emerged wearing adaptive suits, scanning the terrain and speaking in clipped tones. Identify yourself, the mission commander called out. Marcus stepped forward. His clothes bore woven sigils from Elra's hand, and the earth dust on his boots now seemed distant in memory. Marcus Hale. Formerly of Earth's Deep-Range Exploration Wing. Now of the Zalari. The commander's brows rose. You're the one who initiated contact. I did, Marcus replied. But not to report a resource find. To invite cooperation. He guided them into the village, and slowly, the tension softened. Children offered bright fruits to the strangers, and music floated gently through the air. Elra greeted them with dignified grace, and Lyra, now brimming with confidence, spoke proudly about her people's story. The crew stayed for several days. Some remained wary, others grew curious. One scientist, a woman named Holden, asked endless questions about Solari ecology and their relationship with the land. Your methods are intuitive, she admitted one evening as Marcus showed her the radiant root garden. We rely on data. Analysis. But here, it's more like art. And yet the results speak for themselves, Marcus said, handing her a ripe crystal fruit. Try it. Her eyes widened after the first bite. We can learn from this. That's why I invited you, he said. Not to extract, but to share. When the humans departed, they did so with gifts of seeds, woven bracelets, and songs encoded into crystalline chips. Promises were made. Not treaties, but understandings. Weeks passed. The village grew still. Marcus now taught language classes, combining Earth's common tongue with Solari script. Children from both worlds sat on moss-woven mats, scribbling with styluses that changed color with temperature. He told stories of Earth's skies, and they told stories of star giants who slept in the hills. One evening, he joined Elra on the roof of the central hall. From this height, the valley shimmered in the light of the twin moons. I still think about that chocolate, he said with a quiet smile. Elra looked amused. It was small. But it meant everything, he said. One act of kindness. And now, he gestured out at the lights in the valley, homes dotting the landscape like constellations. We built something vast, Elra agreed. They sat in silence, the quiet filled with the chirr of night creatures and the distant hum of laughter below. Marcus reached into his satchel and pulled out a small package, Earth-made chocolate. I had some brought from Earth, he said. I thought, maybe we could share it. Elra accepted it, unwrapped it with the same delicate care her daughter once had. She took a bite, paused, then nodded. Bittersweet, she said. Like beginnings, Marcus replied. The seasons turned again. A new structure rose in the village, a large domed archive made of polished stone and light harvesting panels. Inside, holograms danced through history, both Solari and human, telling stories side by side. There were no borders between them, just flowing pathways, like rivers joining in a single sea. Marcus helped design a central piece of that archive, a sculpture. It was a hand, human-shaped, holding out a small square of chocolate. Beside it, a child's hand, three-fingered, Solari, reaching up to receive it. Beneath the sculpture, a plaque read. A gift. A moment. A future. On the 5th anniversary of Marcus's arrival, a festival swept across the valley. They called it the Day of First Light. Visitors arrived from distant regions. Lanterns drifted through the air. Children ran through garden paths singing in 2 languages. Lyra took the central stage that evening, now a teenager, her voice stronger, her steps full of pride. She told the story of the man who gave her chocolate. And the mother who welcomed him. And the world that followed. When she finished, she turned to Marcus and handed him a new bracelet, woven in white, silver, and blue. We made this together, she said. This world. This peace. Thank you. Marcus accepted it, voice thick with emotion. No, thank you. Later, as the stars blossomed overhead and music carried across the hills, Marcus found a quiet place by the river's edge. Elra joined him, silent for a long while. Do you ever miss your world? She asked. He looked at the stars. Sometimes. But, I think we created a new one here. She reached out and held his hand. Yes. And it is beautiful. They sat there, side by side, the sound of the river flowing around them like time itself. And in that moment, there were no longer humans or Zalari. Only people. Sharing breath, earth, and dreams. Marcus smiled. A journey that began with a single piece of chocolate had grown into a legacy that would outlive them all. He leaned back and watched the stars, whispering a silent vow, to carry the light of that kindness forward, wherever the future might lead.